Hi, I'm Kay Eck, and welcome to my podcast, Alive and Kicking, Stories of Waking Up. So welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm so excited that my guest today is my dear friend, Lisa Marie Trunkenbolz. And one of the reasons I'm so excited to talk to you is because of the astonishing beauty of your path. And I just want to say before we get started that I am just, oh my gosh, I'm so in love with you and your spirit and your work and everything about you. I don't think I've ever met anybody as humbly talented and gifted and true and beautiful and real as you. And so I'm delighted to have you here with me today. Yay.
Wow.
Welcome.
Thank you. Welcome to me. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to this. That was probably the best string of compliments I've ever gotten.
All deserved, all deserved. Well, I really just also wanted to talk to you because I think you have a really compelling story to tell. And I know that from experience, the telling of the story is a gift to yourself and also to the people who might share some commonalities with your journey, and because it is a common journey and common and unique. And so I'm just really grateful to dive in with you today. So let's get started. You know, this podcast is really about revealing the myriad ways that people can be on this spiritual path toward awakening or evolution or enlightenment or whatever you want to call it. So I just wanted to start out today with asking you what you think about that word awakening and what it means to you.
You know, for me, it's kind of twofold. It's a daily thing, but for me in my life, in my experience, it was a one-day thing. My awakening, if I could call one day my awakening, which not everyone has that, I know that. Not everyone has the burning bush moment, and fortunately, I think from my path, I did. And my awakening came, like so many other people's, on a day where my life almost ended. And I guess we're getting right into the dirty right away. There was a day in my life, and I remember the date, I celebrate the date every year, where I was going to end my own life. I had it planned, you know, it was really kind of a structured, organized event in my life. And something occurred just milliseconds before I had this, where I was just very awake. Like that was it. I was very awake in a way that had nothing to do with my eyes or my mind. It was a connection that up until that date I had not really experienced to that magnitude. So for me, the awakening is when you can connect and feel all of life, not just the tangible stuff, but your purpose, you know, source, God, great spirit, whatever we want to call. That's the awakening. And the manifested physical version of that really is kind of secondary to what occurs on a very energetic level. And what I firmly believe about an awakening is once it occurs, it doesn't undo itself. You know, there's no regression from that level of awake.
Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah, once you're awake, you cannot fall asleep again.
No.
Can't.
And I struggled with that a little bit for the first, you know, maybe year that I had this experience. I was living there. I never left it. And I was really terrified. Every day I'd pray that I would stay in that place. And then it started to come to me. The message became clear as I matured a little bit in my own understanding of what this was, that it's not going anywhere. It's here to stay.
Wow.
even on my worst days coming, you know.
Wow. Oh, very interesting. Okay, so let's roll the calendar back a little bit and tell me a little bit about your childhood. How did you grow up? What was your family like? Your relationship with your siblings? And how did you, what was the sense that you had of yourself as a child?
Mm. All right. So I was adopted, and I'm so grateful that I was adopted. I'll tell the story about that a little bit later down the road. But I was adopted, and I grew up knowing I was adopted. So my parents didn't keep that from me. 2 years after I was adopted, my parents thought they couldn't have children. They then conceived my sister. And my mother did her very best, and I know I'm not alone in this, but she was a very quick to anger person, very very abusive. It was just a constant level of narcissism and abuse that was going on in my house. And luckily my dad was a very tender person, so he was kind of my reprieve. So there was that. But I do know now, looking back, I didn't know what this was. There was a real genuine sense of disassociation. I didn't even know what that word was until I was in my 30s, but it made complete sense. And I really feel like it was what helped me to sort of define my life and how I looked at things, and really I had to travel deep into some place, I'm not sure where it was, in order to survive some of the abuse that I had gone through. And there was a time in my parents' life, several times, where they were looking at separating. And so they had sent me to live with a family member, and I was sexually abused then for a long time. So I'm really not trying to be snarky about it, but I had a lot of practice learning to transcend pain. Pain pain being probably one of the worst, versions of adversity in life, right? And so, oh gosh.
Well, would you call disassociation transcendence? Like, I guess it could go any way. The disassociation could be hiding, splitting yourself off from it, avoiding it, or transcending it. Those feel like two really different
Very
things.
different. Yeah.
I'm curious about your choice and how you made that choice. I mean, how old were you?
It came from the very beginning of my life. I never felt quite here, from the beginning. And I think that it comes from the alchemy of all of the situations. Being adopted, not having any bond with my biological mother, the issues of drugs in the womb, witnessing the violence in my home, being the recipient of a lot of that anger and violence, and so on and so forth. And I'm still figuring this out, but I really, I somehow think that the spirit helps you to transcend, but the nervous system is disassociating. And so for me, in my experience, it feels a little bit like both were happening simultaneously. But again, that's how we become so split, and so I really started to self-destruct, like I couldn't feel the pain in my body anymore, and I started to embrace it. I started to understand it, became very familiar, the chaos, the pain, but at the same time was very careful not to inflict it on other people. It was just a really strange thing, and I started to adopt this less than feeling, and this people pleasing, acting out of fear. It was just this year that I realized that people, I think you saw my post, people's opinions is not a reason not to do something, you know? Like for me, crossing the street because you might get hit by a car, or crossing the street because someone's going to get mad at you, had the same weight. It was just wild.
Yeah.
It's wild. So I'm kind of just figuring out how to come back into my human self. But I'm also realizing that all the practice I had in my life helps me to tap into something really out of this world, this limitless thing, you know? So I would never want to live it again, but everything that I experienced really helped, really helped me. You know, for some reason, I came to this earth a piece of coal, you know, and that was just what I needed, you know, I think, in this life.
Well, you might have come into a cave, but you were not a piece of coal.
Oh.
Maybe a diamond, but yeah. So then, did you return to your family after that period of time with the relative, or?
Yes.
Hmm.
So I did return to my family.
And your parents had decided to stay together, or?
They did. They got back together. However, my mother had a series of affairs that happened probably every 4 to 7 years all throughout my childhood. And so each time this would happen, there was just this serious amount of upheaval that happened. But when she was in the home and integrated in the home, again, she was very violent. She had a chemical imbalance. I think, you know, she did her best. I really do think that. Mostly. But when she was in the home, that her violence, her chaos, her imbalances were expressed upon the family members. And when she had these affairs, she wasn't around, and it was a break. It was a break for all of us. So I returned back home, but again, this happened again. At this point, I'm a teenager. So I stayed in the house and I kind of watched everything unfold. Really, at this point, losing my faith in humanity. Living with my mother, she had us very isolated. So I didn't have I mean, you can ask everyone I know, and they'll be like, I think Lisa was born when she was 18. Like, nobody ever saw me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't have a lot of interactions with people unless it was incredibly unhealthy, or I was hiding. As I said, I was becoming a teenager, started to become a bit self-destructive. So I would sneak out at night, and, you know, and those are not the people. So I started to get introduced to drugs, and I don't like them. So luckily they just didn't do anything for me. They kind of messed up the already fun circus I had going on in my head. So yeah. So it was really painful to watch my dad's heartbreak, and at the same time really enjoy her absence.
Yeah. So did you have a sense that you served a role in the family, like with your sister or with your father? Did you assume any adult roles that, you know, were probably not appropriate for a child?
Oh boy, yeah, I really do. I was the role of optimist, punching bag, because my sister was such a soft, gentle, sensitive person, you know, that often it rarely went in her direction. My mom's just misplaced anger, but when it did, I always stepped in. You know, it broke my heart. I can't even I don't even like to go there now. It just broke my heart to such a degree that if I saw my mom losing her temper in that direction, I would immediately pull it back to me. Other roles.
Like with your dad, or?
Yeah. So it was really hard for me to get close to my dad because my mom, she was so skillful. She knew that us being an ally was dangerous for her and her way of life. So it was hard for me to get close to my dad. But when my mother was gone, I played the role of I don't know, friend as best that I could, you know. Yeah, I think that's what it was. I really was very interested and seemed to have some really adult-like conversations with him about what he was feeling, what he was going through. And it was really interesting. There came a point, though, where my mom's response to my teenage anarchy, I guess, I don't know, was to take me to the hair salon and cut all my hair off. I
Oh
mean,
my gosh.
I know. So at 32, I cut my hair for the first time. It was a huge deal because I was so traumatized. I'm on my way into high school, and she takes me to the hairs and just cuts all my hair off. I was so tormented that year.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And so this is what happened, and it's those little moments, you know, like not the big long-standing moments, it's the little moments. I was 3 days before going to school, to high school, and I could not leave the bathroom, and I'm looking in the mirror and I'm just like, oh my God, I look like a boy, they're all gonna call me a boy. And my mom comes in the bathroom and sits on the toilet so defeated, and she's crying. And she goes, I'm sorry I did this to you. I was never as pretty as you when I was younger. Her words. And so in that moment, I was consoling her, and at the same time, wanted so badly for her to stand her ground. I wanted her to be like, you did wrong. I did this as a punishment. But I realized this day that she was reckless, and that I was in the hands of somebody who just overreacted, and there's no way out of this. There's no end to what she could possibly do. And I felt very unsafe. And I felt that day this shell just build up around me, preparing for anything to come. And at this point, all of the adults that I had been placed into care of really just were also abusive. All of them.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So
And
your father was not able to step in for your protection in any way?
no, I mean, he tried. There were a few times where he tried, but first of all, he loves my mother to death. And second of all, if it wasn't coming at me, it was going at him for
Mm.
days. She's got an amazing amount of endurance for just doling out wrath. You know, it really is interesting to explain this to someone, because I'm very aware how it sounds. I knew it growing up, how spoiled and rotten and perhaps convoluted these memories are. But I started to receive little validations of my suspicion that perhaps my mother is completely off her rocker, by going to therapists, by hearing feedback from my teachers. I remember as a teenager, I got my hair all cut off. My mother was started to have another affair. Everything in my whole life was just so painful. I was actually losing touch with myself. And I went to school. Oh, forgive me. I'm going to receive a lot of haters for this. I was getting so angry with life, I set my school on fire. I was really unstable, really unstable. And from there, I was expelled, and I started to go to therapy, thank God. And when I was expelled, I went to a special school with more attention. I started to receive therapy, and this was kind of my savior. And when my mother was introduced into some sort of interaction with one of these authorities, invariably they'd be like, you poor thing, your mom's nuts. Which, I mean, it takes a lot for someone to say something like that.
Yeah. Yes.
Little moments like that, yeah.
Yeah. So what did that do for you to hear that? I mean, it must have been like kind of a double-edged sword, you know, like, yay, somebody's noticed, and like, what the fuck, you know? What happened?
What the fuck is right. But like I said, it was one of the days, one of those light bulb days when my mom and I were in the bathroom. She showed me all by herself that she's not all there. So from there, I started to feel a little bit of hope. I started to think, oh my God, there's a world out there, perhaps, you know, like if I can just make it through this period and like move out, I don't know what that looks like. So yeah, it started to feel like that. Yeah.
So, I mean, that very, very dramatic call for help of trying to set your school on fire, like that's like literally like my world is on fire. Do you see this? Like, please help me. Did you see it that way? Like, what was your motivation? Did you have a sense of a motivation, or was it just a?
So that the way you express that really is just exactly what I see it as now. But at this point, I was so removed from my own thought processes. I didn't know that's what it was. I had no idea why I was doing what I was doing at this point. And around this time is when I started to drink too. And so that was my sense of calm, going to school and drinking and
So that probably worked until it didn't, right?
well, it worked, but I will say this: going to this special school, seeing these therapists worked more at that time. So I did turn it around. I was reintroduced back to public schools. I was on homecoming court. Like I did all the things. I graduated early and then stayed so I could work in the art room. Like I really worked hard to pick myself up, and I learned a lot about myself, in my independence, also in my ability. I was really grateful because my abilities, to do the things I wanted to do, really, really kind of invalidated my mom's opinion of me, which I desperately needed. I wasn't a very conventional learner, which I think really aggravated her, which they do. Like I have a 4-year-old now, and it's a challenge sometimes. Aggravated is not the word, but it is a challenge to learn how they learn. Who are you? And my mom just didn't have the patience for that. So I started to realize the ways in which I learn, and it just really wasn't conventional. It did wonders for my self-esteem. Yeah.
So then what happened next? Did you go to college, or did you choose another route?
So I did go to college. I had decided that I would be, I had a boyfriend who was a firefighter, who was going to school to be a firefighter. His whole family was paramedics and firefighters. So that's what I chose to do. I went to school and got my EMT license and started to work as an emergency medical technician, and also was testing as a firefighter. So in the area, you need to have both. You need to have a degree and be a firefighter in. So I was really pushing myself physically. I love the medical stuff. I love the anatomy, all of the biology, the study of the body. It just was really, really wonderful. My life took one more south turn after I was getting into this. But yeah, I really climbed I have found a lot of defining parts in that journey that were just a little off parallel with my life's purpose. So, I mean, I'm not meant to be a fireman. No.
So what was the path that led you to contemplate taking your life?
Okay, so here we go. I still wasn't right. My heart was a closed, tight box. I didn't trust anyone. And at this point, I was seeing somebody who was my high school sweetheart. It's the only glimpse of friendship I had up to this point. And we broke up. Wasn't entirely his fault. I just was not right. I was not well educated in how to be in a relationship. I watched my own violent tendencies start to come out to this very lovely boy, but we were together for 5 years. But we broke up, and at the same time, my mother had another affair, and she moved my father away this time and moved her boyfriend in. And I just needed to get out of that chaos. I needed to move out of my house. And so I was working at just a part-time job. I was going to school. I was working at emergency rooms and local fire departments for the EMT. And one of my friends that I knew from high school goes, hey, if you need to make a quick $2,000, there's this strip club that you can do an amateur night. I'm on board. I want to get out of this house. And so I went and did that, and I succeeded at my mission. I got my $2,000, and then was able to move out,
Oh.
So yeah, I moved out 2 weeks later, and then was immediately hooked on this lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
I had found something that was comfortable, the level of chaos. I understood the dynamic of sexual desire, objectification. There was no part of this that was hard for me. And so, and drinking was encouraged. And so I just slipped right in. And I think I was 22. Just had my EMT license for about 2 years, 22 years old. I got my first DUI. And any DUI pretty much takes you off takes it off the table to become a firefighter. So the one thing that I was holding on to that made me feel a bit noble or equipped or something, for life, something that made me feel validated, was gone. And everything else, I was just an emotional wreck, completely still in that self-destructive phase, only standing tall or making the right choice for what I wanted to accomplish, because my accomplishments had really become the defining thing about me.
Like a little bit of a life raft.
Yes. And I realized as soon as that was gone, I didn't care about myself. Mm-hmm. And so I just totally let go. I let go and surrendered to this place of just not caring, and worked in the nightclubs, started to drink really heavily, and it became a severe addiction overnight. So drinking morning, noon, and night. And if anyone out there has ever experienced an alcoholic or gone through alcoholism themselves, there's a point where you get as a morning, noon, and night drinker where you're both withdrawing from alcohol and getting drunk at the same time. Wow. And it's the most insane experience, because withdrawing from alcohol is actually one of the most dangerous withdrawals that you can have, because it can put your brain into a seizure and you can die. Heroin withdrawals does not even threaten the life the way alcoholism does. Yeah. And so I would wake up, from whatever alcoholic stupor I had put myself in 4 or 6 hours later, withdrawing. So I was shaking, tremors, and seeing things, and also trying to drink more. And it would come up, and I'm just giving you the raw dirty of it. Like, this is what it looks like. Yeah. It would come up, and then I would try and drink, and eventually it would stay down. And so I'm just getting right to the worst part of it. And there came a point where that wasn't my first DUI. I got another DUI. I was driving while I was drinking, and somehow I kind of knew that this was coming, but I got pulled over. I didn't get pulled over. There was an attempt to pull me over, and I decided to flee, and I went through this high-speed auto chase through several towns. Thank God nobody was hurt. Thank God. But just a testament to how very sick and careless and empty I was. I was ready to leave this earth, and that earned me a year in prison, where I really had my first sober breaths, nights, days, experiences. And I was with people who had experienced the same things I did. These beautiful women who just so talented, and they can all sing. It is amazing the way they sing, but crafty and dysfunctional and abused, and really without any other way in life. And it really touched me deep inside and transformed me. I got to see, I think that is where I learned my level of compassion for people. You know, that's one of the skills that I think that I have, is I can just really feel people. I can feel their wounds, you know,
Yeah.
and see the beauty in them as well. I'm getting to this point. So I spent that time in prison, and then I got out, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, I haven't drank in all this time. I'm fine. But that actually wasn't the case. And in 2008, let me make sure I have my numbers right here. It was longer. 2007. Yeah. So in 2007, I was released from prison. Multi-felonious individual, lost my career path. I have no idea what a sense of family is, no friends, no money. Gosh, but there was freedom, you know. So I don't know. There was nothing there that I was holding on to. I went home. I thought it was going to be fine. Home was with a boyfriend at the time, who then became my husband. We'll stop there. And so I went home, and 2 or 3 weeks later, I relapsed and was worse than ever. And that's when I had decided. So I watched my poor boyfriend just endure this, you know, and he just got fed up with it and so sick of it, and I really didn't care. And so it was January 18th of 2008. So from October until that January, I had really, really become very clear that my path had ended. I needed to end it myself, because I was trying nightly to just, please let me not wake up tomorrow. There's nothing here for me. I'm in so much pain. I'm so empty. And so January 18th, I waited for my boyfriend to leave. He was a paramedic, so it was very convenient. He was gone every third day for 24 hours. And this was the day that I had planned to do it. He kept guns stocked in the house. And I knelt on the floor, and I felt no which way about it. Neither here nor there. It just, okay, here we go. And something snapped. Something saved me. I wasn't looking for it. I didn't believe it was there, but something flashed, and it was a sunny winter day. The snow had just fallen, so it's like this huge light box outside, just an alcoholic's nightmare, you know. But suddenly I was like, whoa, and I'm getting just, every time I tell this story, I get goosebumps. Okay. And I was sober. I was sober for the first, time, and this just on I think a 3-week long standing binge. I was like, whoa. You know, in movies, how they do that focal effect where you see like the dust coming up, and it was like, that's the level of awake, and I'll just call it that I was in that moment. And I felt it shoot into me. You need to be here. There's more. And I put the gun down, and just like that, the drapes fell, and I was really drunk and sick again. I was just really, really, and I was taking pills at this time too. It was just whoosh. But I knew, I'm like, I need to hold on to this. This was a roadmap. So I got my, and that was the day. That was my wake up. I don't necessarily think you even need to leave your body to have that effect that people have when they die and come back to life.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
I know what that is.
Yeah. So then what happened? Wow.
So, I couldn't see, but I'm like, I need to call a cab. And this was before Uber, so I called a cab, and I'm on my way. And I can just, for the first time in my life, I was feeling energies, not densities. I was feeling energies. I got into this cab and felt an energy. The cab driver was looking back, and he's like, and I knew what that energy was. He's like, you don't have to go to rehab. Why don't you come home with me? And I could feel it. And I was like, wow, I can deal with this. I understand this. I don't know people, but I know this. I know energies. And I think it was because for the first time, I had the flash of the opposite of that energy. I was able to see the light that I had not seen yet. And I said, no, thank you. I got there. And when I arrived at rehab, their rule is, and this blows my mind, that you need to be as sober as you can, a level of sober. You have to be a level of sober, you know. Typically they want you to blow a bit below, what is the driving, whatever, because you have a couple of hours of paperwork to do. So I walked in, I insisted that I was capable of doing this. Now, mind you, I hadn't stopped drinking in 3 weeks, so I have no idea what my blood alcohol content was. I'm filling out these paperworks, but I am in a different place. You know, I felt it in my heart and in my mind. It was operating for me. I was signing all of these papers. Probably about 4 hours went by, and they had me do a breathalyzer, and I blew a 0.36. And the woman was like, how are you doing this? I'm like, I don't know, but I need you to put me somewhere before I leave. And so I went through a detox phase, and this was the first time I'd ever actually detoxed at this level. And it was pretty bad. It was, I was seeing things and had to take a lot of medications, and it lasted about 5 days. But from that point forward, I never looked back. You know, I spent 30 days in rehab, and I went to AA after that, and I did all the things in AA that I needed to do. I got a sponsor. I followed her instructions. I started sponsoring other people. I still go to these meetings, you know, now, and it's not because I'm going because I need a drink. I don't. I was gifted this level of neutrality for that energy, you know, like that practice, that self-medicating, and I haven't turned back. It's helping others now. You know, I'm showing up to help others.
Yeah.
And it's been wonderful.
You know, there's just almost no way to reconcile the first part of your life with the second part. You know, it's like that, I think, is probably a pretty rare occurrence where there's that delineating moment where everything shifts. And everything, I'm sure there was much to deal with and still is along the path, you know, reconciling what happened, but to have that definitive moment, it's like such an incredible gift. You must feel so blessed by that. I don't know any other word.
Very fortunate, really fortunate. Yeah, I can't even, there's another energy to it, but that's what we'll have to go with today, because it literally felt like being ripped out of the water just in time, you know, before drowning. And and I haven't had, you're right, there are other things to deal with, but that's the beauty of it now. I haven't had to white knuckle fight the urge to self-construct like that anymore. Wow.
I mean, it's just like, I think that people who in the community, because you have this beautiful yoga community, and you know, they probably would be so surprised to hear about your path, because you are such a bright light and a gentle soul, and I think that's just how people see you. And I just like, that's like one of the whole purposes for this podcast, is to just show that there's nothing impossible. And this seems impossible that you could have come so far, you know, in such a short amount of time. It's just incredible. So how has that, you know, your commitment to, well, first of all, I guess, you know, I was thinking of your life as, and all of our lives really, as being like, you know, there's like, for a while, it's like spiritual's here, and then like the regular daily life is here, and they're somewhat separate, you know, and then as you get along on the path, you find that they're moving closer and closer until, you know, suddenly they're intrinsic and they can't be separate anymore. Was that point for you, or did that come later?
Wow.
I know you are a sandwich.
I'm here now, yes. Yeah. But, and what a magical place to be, right? Oh my gosh. That is the foundation from which nothing is impossible. But that wasn't it. That was the light switch, that turned the lights on in the room. And from there I started to feng shui my life. But I had to figure out who I was. And that's an ongoing process. There was a lot of nervous and neurological trauma that I had to first recognize. Good God, like nobody told me that a physical response occurs when you're sexually or physically abused that actually alters your way of understanding life, thinking, relating to others. As a woman in my 20s at this point, I got sober at 24. I didn't know how to have sex. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't know how to relate. I didn't know how to be intimate,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know who I wanted to be. I didn't know I liked yoga. I didn't know any of these things. So parts of my life were still being lived in a place of security, safety, fear, unknowing, because I thought it's what I should do, things like that. But other parts were falling away, so I got sober at 24, I'm 36 now. And I think that the past 3 years has been the greatest understanding of myself, who I am now. And, the 7 or 8 years prior, was a lot, I think, of physical healing that I didn't realize was going on just in calming down, just in getting out of dangerous environments. It really started to, I really was able to watch my body transform over that course of like 7 to 10 years, my responses to stress, just how I treated food, how I treated my body, how I talked to myself,
Mm-hmm.
my response when my mother called me, you know what I mean? Like all of those things had to come first because I needed to come into my body. I remember the first time I was in my late 20s and I spoke with a psychic and I didn't know anything about this light worker world, and I spoke with a psychic who said, you are up here. She's like, do you know how to get in there? And I was just like, I don't know what you're saying, but I know exactly what you're saying. And no, I don't know how to get back because it's scary in here, And so that was my work. And then once I figured out how to do that, and yoga was a big part of it, a personal practice, then I started to realize, I'm not trapped professionally by my record. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so I started, and we're also not trapped by what people think needs to happen in order to follow their purpose, their path. I had no idea how to draw up a business plan or start up a business or anything like that, but no idea up here, but I knew in here, and that's what matters. And luckily, I wasn't smart enough to go find out the reasons that would make it too hard. I'm just like, this is what I'm doing now because I know it in here. And every day I would just show up and do the next thing, do the next thing.
Oh
And
my
as I
God.
continued, and that was actually the point where it stopped being just a physical alignment and the spiritual and physical started to align, was when I just committed to my intuition. That's it.
Mm.
I stopped doing things because I didn't understand. I stopped not doing things because I didn't understand them, or I thought I might fall flat on my face or anything else. And I just got really in tune with that intuition, and
And
everything worked out.
what is that? What is that meant to you? How has that affected your life? Being
Oh, wow.
married to the intuition.
It has made it impossible for me not to do what my soul calls me, my soul purpose. And that includes it, wonderful things, great experience, and it's not good or bad. It's not in that category. It's like I consider the day I almost ended my life, one of the best days of my life, if that helps you to understand. But just for simplicity's sake, I've watched my life build up in certain ways and deconstruct in certain ways, because if it doesn't line up with my intuition, it's got to go. And one of those things is my marriage, you know. But one of the things that's come is a bafflingly successful project with my yoga studios.
Yeah.
You know, the way this is unfolding has nothing to do with how intelligent I am, you know. It doesn't.
Okay. I just think that is such an important thing to bring through, because this idea of following our intuition seems like it's going to be like a really awesome, great thing. But showing up to your life in that way and saying yes to a call that is beyond your physical world is it can be both wonderful and incredibly challenging and difficult, because sometimes it requires you to do things that you're afraid to do, things you don't want to do, things that are going to make people upset. Yeah. And the ability to face that head on and do it anyway is just, to me, it's the only way to operate in this new world. But it's hard. It's so hard, and it's exhausting, frankly.
Yeah, exhausting is right. Okay, I got to tell you, at this point, I'm so grateful that I found you, because every time, it's almost like, what would Kay do? I just like channel my Kay, and it's wonderful, because the advice, you know, the prayers that come to me don't make any rational sense, but it does at the same time. And you're right. Like, I'm really grateful for women like you, particularly you, who are doing this scary thing, because we need that light.
Yeah.
We need someone's just beautifully standing in her light, and like, come on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So good.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I think that what I'm finding, at least at this point in my life, is that the hard, like the really, really, there's like this period of time when saying yes to your heart and being real, taking off the masks, is really the hardest thing you'll ever do, bar none, including rehab, including prison, you know. But it's like an intense but limited amount of time. And then beyond that, there's a certain freedom and a certain ease that's not so uncomfortable anymore. It becomes like the only way that you can operate. So there's no amount of energy that's spent fighting that or wondering about it or, you know, kind of resisting it. It's just, you're stepping into the flow and you're just going, and there's nothing you can do about it. So you're a little bit, you know, taken by a wind at your back or a current under your feet. And so you can, you know, let go in the process a little bit better. So hopefully that's something that you're finding. I think it probably is.
Absolutely. It's happening on a daily basis now, where my day ends and I'm like, well, that's not what I planned for today. Every single day.
Yeah.
And it's great. It's great.
Yeah. It's exciting, and it's also, you know, it can be tiring.
Yeah.
So do you think that the path to awakening has to be hard? Is there something about that challenge that is a necessity?
Right away, I want to say no, but I also wonder if that's because I want to save people from pain.
Mm.
I think that there needs to be, everyone has their own set lock and key, you know, and mine just happened to be a bit out of the norm in terms of hard. But so many of my friends now and people will come to me for advice or not sometimes not for advice, sometimes just to talk. And if if they are open to me saying anything, it's really just like, have fun with the hard stuff, you know, see if you can find the fun in the darkness, or, you know, which is not always so easy to do, especially lately, because there's been just so much challenge, you know, that everyone's going through. But I don't necessarily think everyone's path has to be so hard, but in order to experience the full spectrum magic of it, there has to be some witches and demons and dark and fire. There just has to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's there anyway, probably. It's not that you're, you know, just getting lucky with that.
Right. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think what happens is, you know, like, how much energy are you expending or taking from this experience of life and living life by trying not to fall in the potholes? You know what I mean? Like, you know, look up, look up and be here.
Yeah.
And if you fall, you know, just trust that you didn't need that leg anyway.
That's awesome. Well, this seems like a really good time to switch over to our lightning round. Okay, so Lisa, are you ready to do our lightning round?
I'm ready.
What time of day is your absolute favorite?
8 p.m. until about 3 in the morning.
Why is that?
I love painting. It's my creative hour. No one's bothering me. My child's asleep. It's just been my favorite time of day forever.
Wow.
I'm nocturnal for sure.
Wow, that's interesting. I have a friend who was just telling me that the most creative time is actually nighttime, which is I have been feeling myself moving, like shift. Everything is turning upside down for me. I used to be like early morning. It was my most creative time, and now I'm like finding myself at midnight or 3 o'clock in the morning, like writing poetry or whatever. You know, it's like,
yeah, those twilight hours are something, man.
yeah, there's some magic in there. Do you believe there is objective beauty? Like everything that's true is beautiful. Everything that's true is beautiful. That's the objective nature of beauty.
Yeah, you know, and that's kind of where I was going when I started answering this question the first time. Is yes, yeah, you're right. It's not something really that has anything to do with optics, you know. It's felt, and it's just creates a spontaneous smile on my face, you know. And I don't want to necessarily equate it to peace, because it has a more magical, all-encompassing, full spectrum, you know, beauty to it. The rose and the thorn. Yeah. Felt in the spirit.
I love that. Yeah. Beautiful. Coffee or tea?
Decaf coffee.
Me too.
Really?
Yeah.
Regular coffee. At this point, like drugs, just anything, any sort of stimulant or anything. I don't like it. I'm too connected. I don't want to mess this up.
Yeah, I go in and out of coffee periods, and I always, when I start back on the coffee, I always think like, I don't think people realize what coffee does to your system, because
they don't.
I mean, you get used to it so quickly, but it's still doing that to your system. You know, it's like, I feel like it doesn't actually give me more energy, but it makes me more anxious about everything. You know? Like,
yeah, I go through these cycles, and it's almost like I did this science experiment almost, where I'm like watching the cycle occur, where it's like this amazing elation, and then anger, and then sadness, and then a sleepiness.
Yeah.
And then
yeah.
You do it again.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Thank God for decaf. All right. What's the best gift you've ever given?
The best gift, my baby.
Oh, yes.
To the world.
Yes. I just want to share with everybody that the first time I met Lisa's beautiful daughter, Fiona, she looked up at me, and I think she was only 2 years old, and she said, "Oh, I've been missing you." And I was just like, "Oh my God, I've been missing you too." That was so incredible.
That was so beautiful. Oh my gosh.
I know, like, you know, from our time on the other star, you know, like,
my God. And that was such an authentic moment too.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Authentic. Yeah.
I've been missing you.
I've been missing you. Like she just like remembered that she had been missing me because she saw me, you know? It was like, oh my gosh.
I've never heard her say that to anyone else either. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. What would you like more of in your life?
Right away, joy.
Mm.
Joy and ease right now. I used to have a lot of joy after I got sober and before I decided to separate from my husband, I had a lot of it, you know, and but I know right now is just a period of work. Joy and just joy, actually.
Yeah.
Just cut it off
That would
there.
be on the top of my list too. And I think that you're right. We have been through this period of, you know, like the human experience, our individual human experience has been like squeezed inside this vice. And I've also heard people refer to it as the eye of the needle, where, you know, only the essence can fit through to where we're going through. So it's almost like you've been like scraped raw from trying to get through that needle with all your baggage when it just has to go, you know?
Wow.
So, yeah.
I see that. Wow. Yep.
Yeah.
We're all very skinny right now.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Hopefully on the other side, it'll be, we'll start, you know, having some fun. That would be awesome. All right. So to conclude today, Lisa, do you have a question for me?
How can we carry this message? How can we be of service to other people carry this in a graceful way while we're just stumbling? And maybe I'm asking too much right away, but I don't know. I feel like, yeah, how can we just be a bit more graceful with our new legs and shine our light? What advice would you give me as my friend?
Yeah. Well, you know, I'm also like, I don't think there's very many people who have already gotten this figured out. So I would say much more of the same. Just for me, the things that used to throw me off, my access, can't do that anymore because I've been focused so clearly on connecting right here, straight to source, with nothing else in between. No relationships, no ideas, no conditioning, no history, no future predictions, no communities, no nothing. Just this and that. And that's going to be the most powerful thing, I think. And what we do is secondary to that. I really do believe that the light that we are, the more light we can, you know, integrate into who we are, or to reveal, then it changes everything that we do, everyone around us, the ions in the air, you know, everything.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's going to be as hard as you think. You're just going to have to continue to be you and continue to walk the path that you're doing. I don't think there's anything that needs to be done besides that. Yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah. I was just actually considering this myself, like, okay, I understand the part about being the light. How do I bring it forward? How do I bring it out? How do I expand it? And I'm doing the same thing that you're doing, which is just listening, not to the far future, but just to the next step that comes from here. So like I said earlier, I have, like, everything about what I've been doing has just turned upside down, and I'm doing something like I never thought I would be doing. But just saying yes to the next step.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
Wow.
Well, Lisa, I want to thank you so much for being here today. And I know that your story is going to inspire people And it just makes me want to cry at the beauty of it. And I'm so, so grateful that you're here to tell that story and to shine your light and to be your friend and to be in your company and to watch and learn by example. I love you so, so much.
Okay, thank you. I love you so much too. Let's get coffee soon.
Okay, we will.
Decaf
All right.
coffee.
Bye, Lisa.
See you later.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks for inviting me.
Okie doke. Bye-bye.